Harris and Trump are set to debate this coming Tuesday in what will likely be the most important scheduled moment of this entire campaign. And right now, these two candidates and campaigns are essentially tied, which means that the winner of the debate is likely to win the election. So what should you be looking out for? I've watched every debate since 1960, and I provide a longer history on debates in this channel, and there's a link below in the description where you could check that video out. But what I'm going to do here is give you the 10 rules of debate that I've put together from watching all these debates and just generally from experience watching and coaching candidates who have to do these debates in forums. So rule number 1 is that whoever wins the debate is not necessarily the one who wins the debate. What do I mean by this? Is that, winning arguments, being more substantive, knowing more about policy, one-upping your opponent, sometimes that stuff is irrelevant. A good example here is the very first presidential debate that we've had, which is Kennedy and Nixon. As I talk about in the history, Nixon won the debate in the minds of people who only tuned in on radio, but folks who watched on TV thought that Kennedy won, probably because of his body language, the way he looked, he had makeup on, he looked fresher and younger, right? So the substance didn't matter at all. Who had stronger arguments didn't really matter. It was a lot of stuff that on paper you wouldn't pick up. This is something that also played to Reagan's strengths. When he would prepare for debates, he famously would resist a lot of the policy prep and just focus on one-liners because he knew that those lines would be memorable and would trump any long, extended back and forth over policy. The 1988 debate is a good example of this. A biographer wrote that, quote, Dukakis was more serious than Bush, more articulate, more overly aggressive, scored many more debating points, and ultimately was less likable. And actually, in the second debate, the questioner in the debate actually asked Dukakis, saying essentially, you won on intellect, but you lost on heart. And obviously, George W. Bush is a great example of this. He was the quote-unquote guy you would want to have a beer with. So winning the debate is not about winning the debate. Rule number 2 is that body language and cutaways matter a ton. 1960 debate, Nixon, the first cutaways of Nixon were showing him looking really uncomfortable and kind of glowering. George H.W. Bush in the 1992 debate was seen checking his watch during a rather uncomfortable exchange. Al Gore was sighing, which is, the kind of thing that will be less relevant here because Trump's mic is going to be cut off. Joe Biden in the most recent debate looked, shall we say, sleepy in that debate. So these kind of cutaway, nonverbal moments really matter. Number 3, expectations are key. Heading into the 1980 debates, a lot of people thought, hey, Ronald Reagan, he's an actor, he's not super substantive, he's not going to be great at debates. He vastly exceeded those expectations. Heading into 2000, George W. Bush was seen as kind of dumb, and everybody thought Gore was this, super smart Yale graduate who'd been, wiping the floor with people in the Senate, but George W. Bush exceeded expectations. Heading into the 2004 debates, George W. Bush's team famously said that Kerry would be the best debater since Cicero, so they were trying to elevate the expectations for Kerry. And this is a particularly dangerous rule for Harris because right now, according to the most recent ABC News Washington Post poll that came over the weekend, voters actually expect Harris to do better than Trump, which means that she has a higher bar to clear. Number 4, and I think this is my favorite rule, is you have to be the appropriate aggressor. And this goes all the way back to the very first debate. A lot of people gave Nixon, including his running mate, Henry Cabot Lodge, gave him the advice to tone it down a bit because he was viewed as kind of like a mean, aggressive guy. And he actually was too agreeable, right? Whereas in other debates, some people have been too aggressive. A good example of too aggressive is Gore, who moved up to Bush's personal space during the town hall meetings. Trump 2020 was interrupting Biden a ton, was viewed as too aggressive. And this term appropriate aggressor actually comes from Tom Donilon, who was an advisor to Michael Dukakis, who said that whoever emerged as the appropriate aggressor would win. So you want to be aggressive, but not off-putting. It is a very difficult balance. Rule number 5 is there's a danger of being too personal. A great example of this is the primary debates in 1992. There's a clip that we show in our extended episode where Jerry Brown and Bill Clinton go back and forth, and where Jerry Brown basically attacked Hillary Clinton for work she did at a law firm and basically accused her of doing sort of inside dealing with the state. And Bill Clinton pounced and absolutely crushed Jerry Brown when he did that. Another example of this backfiring is John Kerry, who mentioned Dick Cheney's daughter in a debate answer about gay marriage, which was viewed as off-putting by the electorate. A good quote on this is from Ted Sorensen, who is a Kennedy advisor, who wound up giving this advice to Jimmy Carter. He said, "At all times, be courteous, respectful, friendly in manner, even when vigorously disagreeing or criticizing, even when unfairly attacked. Do not call your opponent names or slur his character or criticize his wife." And so, this is something to keep in mind with Trump on the stage. Obviously, he has had a history of such personal attacks. Rule number 6, themes over policy. This is best encapsulated by advice that Roger Ailes, who was then an advisor to Reagan, obviously went on to start Fox News. He gave this advice to Reagan after a particularly poor performance Reagan had in the first debate of the 84 debate season. He said, "You didn't get elected on details, you got elected on themes. Every time a question is asked related to one of your themes." Rule number 7, it's not always obvious who won. And a corollary to this is post-debate spin matters. The first actual documented moment of post-debate spin was actually in 1960 when Jackie Kennedy was holding a debate watch party, which may have been the first debate watch party in history. And she invited the press in, and immediately after the debate, she was basically peppering the press with quotes about how amazing her husband did. And that started a long tradition. People in the quote-unquote spin room, and now it's on Twitter, trying to say who won or lost and clipping different aspects of debates to show somebody either looking great or somebody looking poor. Rule number 8, debates are about moments. It's about creating moments. Ford in 1976, he uttered this famous line, "There was no Soviet occupation of Eastern Europe," which was viewed as a huge gaffe at the time that cost him that election. Reagan had many moments when he said, "There you go again," to Carter, when he talked about his youth and inexperience in 80, or not holding his opponent's youth and inexperience against him in 84. Clinton versus Bush, the town hall moment that I described where Bush was looking at his watch and Clinton gave a home run of an answer. Obama 2012 against Romney when he did the whole "please proceed, governor," when Romney was getting something wrong. And then most recently, kind of a negative moment for Biden is when he said he beat Medicare. Rule number 9, primacy matters. So starting strong is way more important than anything you do for the rest of the debate, because that first impression really solidifies. Now, corollary to this is that people say you can only basically win a debate in the beginning, but you can lose a debate at any point. And what this means is being particularly compelling, strong, energetic, crisp matters a lot at the beginning. And then for the rest of the debate, the key is to avoid gaffes, right? So watch out for that. Number 10 is, and by the way, especially in the era of Twitter, you're watching these debates, the chatter on Twitter starts to create a perception right away. People are talking, and then I can imagine in living rooms it's the same. People are talking to each other, they're sharing impressions. That solidifies. So no matter what you do later on, that perception is baked in. And then rule number 10, practice spontaneity, right? Or watch for practice spontaneity as an audience member. The "there you go again" line, the youth and experience lines from Reagan were practiced. The famous vice presidential line against Dan Quayle, "You're no Jack Kennedy," was actually a result of staffers on their team attending a Quayle rally in Missouri and then integrating that into practicing in debate prep. So those are the 10 rules. Something else to keep in mind here is that the closer that debates are to the election, the more they matter. This one is relatively early, although being that it might be the only one, it could matter a ton. Another thing to keep in mind is that whoever is behind tends to have more to gain in a debate. Now, it's not clear if anybody is particularly ahead or behind right now, but given that Harris seems to have picked up a lot of momentum over the past few weeks and months, I'd say Trump needs this debate more than her. So those are the rules. You know what to look out for. I'm really excited to see what happens on Tuesday.